This video was made possible thanks to CuriosityStream. Watch TLDR ad-free and get exclusive videos from us by signing up to the CuriosityStream Nebula Bundle deal at curiositystream.com/TLDREU. Yesterday evening, Russia ordered troops into eastern Ukraine, marking the real beginning of a conflict many have been warning about for months. But as you might have noticed, tensions actually began to reach a boiling point between Russia and Ukraine over the weekend. Despite a brief moment of optimism earlier in the week when Russia claimed to be withdrawing troops, total troop numbers have actually increased, and politicians are warning that war looks likelier than ever. Even over the weekend, politicians already foresaw this invasion. Boris Johnson said that Russia is planning the biggest war in Europe since 1945, and Biden said that he was convinced that Putin had decided to invade Ukraine, after warning voters that a Russian invasion of Ukraine could affect US gas prices. So in this video, we thought we'd explain why politicians and commentators predicted Russia's invasion of Ukraine that we observed yesterday evening. As we see it, there are three reasons. First, Russian troop movements. Second, Russia's new information campaign. And third, the behaviour of Russian-backed separatists in Donbass. So let's start with Russian troop movements. As we mentioned earlier, early last week there was a moment of optimism when Putin announced that he'd be withdrawing some troops from Belarus, having finished joint exercises with Belarusian forces. This optimism was apparently misplaced. Russian troops have stayed in Belarus past the end of their joint exercises, which were scheduled to end on Sunday. According to the Belarusian defense minister, Russian troops decided to stay in Belarus because of the ongoing tension in Donbass, which, well, Russia started. This is particularly alarming because a similar thing happened in 2008, when Russia invaded Georgia. Russia completed its Kavkaz 2008 drills, told everyone it was putting some of its troops back to their bases, and then invaded a few days later. As well as leaving troops in Belarus, Russia has increased its troop presence on the Russo-Ukrainian border. US intelligence reckons there are now between 169,000 and 190,000 troops surrounding Ukraine, up from 100,000 on January the 30th. Satellite imagery showed Russian troop movements closer to the Ukrainian border. And, perhaps most worryingly, the construction of forward arming refuel points, which are stations where helicopters can be quickly rearmed and refueled, and temporary field hospitals near the Ukrainian border, both of which suggest an invasion is now likely. Previously, commentators were somewhat comforted by the fact that, despite its massive troop buildup, Russia hadn't built any field hospitals, which suggested that they weren't truly ready for a full-scale invasion, and the casualties that would entail. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case. Similarly, in January, commentators were arguing that Russia would need about twice the 100,000 troops it had deployed on the Russian border for a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The upper end estimate for US intelligence is now 190,000, which is presumably why Biden claimed on Friday that Putin could go beyond Donbass and try to take Kiev. Another bad sign is that over the weekend, Russia went ahead with its Grom 2022 strategic nuclear drills, which included testing cruise missiles, an intercontinental ballistic missile, and a hypersonic cruise missile. Now, it's worth saying that these exercises were scheduled a while ago. It's not like Putin decided to test his nuclear arsenal out of the blue, but it still doesn't look good. So, that's the first reason why an invasion was inevitable. The ever-increasing troop build-up, making it increasingly difficult to back down. On to the second bit of evidence, Russia's new information campaign. In our previous video on the topic, we argued that Putin wasn't serious about invasion because he wasn't properly preparing the Russian public, who, at least according to polling, aren't particularly keen on invasion. Reliable polling is difficult to find, but polling from the Levada Center in April 2021 found that Russians were basically split on whether or not Russia should intervene in Donbass, but more Russians thought an invasion of Ukraine would hurt Putin's domestic approval than help it. More recently, polling from the Wall Street Journal suggested that just 8% of Russians think Russia should send military forces to fight the Ukrainian government forces, and only 9% think that Russia should train or equip separatist forces with Russian arms. The point is, Russians aren't super keen on war with Ukraine, so Russia's state media will need to prepare them for an invasion. Anyway, a month ago, the situation in Ukraine barely made the evening news bulletins on Russian state media, which suggested an invasion wasn't coming. Today, it's all over the front pages, and Russian state media is arguing that the West is pushing a war because various Western figures, including Boris Johnson, the royal family, and Erdogan, stand to benefit from it personally. State media has also argued that Russia needs to intervene to prevent, quote, genocide against ethnic Russians. This is worryingly similar to what happened in 2014. The Russian public was pretty ambivalent about the annexation of Crimea before a successful information campaign led by Russian state media convinced them otherwise. In the aftermath, Putin's approval ratings shot up by 15%, and today Levada's polling suggests that about 86% of Russians approve of the annexation. Now, there's reason to be sceptical about whether Russian state media can pull off a similar trick this time round. For starters, a full-scale occupation of Ukraine is bound to be a lot more violent, with even heavier sanctions, and while surveys from earlier than 2014 showed that a majority, 56%, of Russians thought that Crimea was essentially Russian, only about 25% think the same thing about Donbass. Nonetheless, you get the point. Putin has started preparing the Russian public for invasion, and this is bad news. On to the third bit of evidence, the behaviour of Russian-backed separatists in Donbass. Over the weekend, Russian-backed separatist leaders in Donbass accused Ukrainian forces of, quote, terror tactics in the form of shelling, and Russia claimed that some Ukrainian artillery fire had landed on the Russian side of the border. For its part, the Ukrainian military denied any shelling and accused Russia of staging a false flag attack. Anyway, in response to the increase of shelling on February the 18th, separatist authorities ordered a complete evacuation of the area via a couple of Telegram videos, and all able-bodied men between 18 and 55 were conscripted. The metadata for these files implies that they were actually pre-recorded on February the 16th, which suggests that they knew about the shelling in advance. The separatists also published a video claiming to show a car full of explosives being towed away from women and children evacuating to Russia, which had metadata suggesting it was filmed in 2019, and claimed that Ukrainian forces tried to car bomb one of their leaders. Again, it turned out they'd actually switched the plates with another car, and all of this suggests a premeditated false flag operation. Again, you get the point. Separatists are evacuating the region of civilians while fabricating the pretext for invasion. Ultimately, Putin had been building up to this moment, with him claiming that a genocide was taking place against Russians, and that women and children were at threat. So it would have been hard for him to back down even if he'd wanted to, which it now seems was always his intention, or relent either admitting he lied, or allowing people to think he was letting the West win in his imagined false flag narrative. It seems Putin went for the first option, and it looks like Europe is entering a time of war, a rare phenomenon for a relatively peaceful continent. It's not the most peaceful though. That honour goes to South America, who, despite the ongoing issues with crime, drugs and gangs, pretty much never experiences war. In fact, we discuss why South America is so peaceful in our latest video exclusively for Nebula, the streaming service my creator friends and I have teamed up to build, where we don't need to worry about demonetization or the algorithm. Over there you can find our latest videos ad-free and exclusive videos like this one. It's not just us either. All of our favourite educational creators are already there, like Wendover Productions, Real Life Law, Polymatter, Legal Eagle, Half as Interesting, and many more. But wait, we said that this video was brought to you by CuriosityStream, right? Well, as a platform full of the best documentaries online, they naturally love educational creators like us. As such, we've worked out a deal whereby if you sign up to CuriosityStream using the link below, you'll also get access to Nebula. That's not a free trial either. You'll get access for as long as you're a member. To make things even better, for a limited time, they're offering a deal where you can get 26% off their already low price, making an entire year of both streaming services less than $15. Less than $15 a year for all your favourite educational creators, as well as superb documentaries on a whole bunch of topics, including Hidden Russia, a breathtaking documentary about the country, and The Spying Game, which goes deep into the secrets of Cold War tactics. Signing up at curiositystream.com/TLDREU or clicking the link below not only gets you the deal, but it also directly supports TLDR and educational content on the platform more generally, as well as getting you original content and an ad-free experience.